Everyone. Hi, NextGen Nation. Welcome to our first breakout session of the day. Today, we're going to be talking about when you're a new supervisor and now what? We have two great speakers with us to talk about some fundamentals for new leaders. Hopefully you enjoyed our keynote this morning. I thought Sarah and Mary were both fabulous speakers as usual, and I can't wait for the rest of the day. So a lot of times new managers become supervisors because they excelled at their previous jobs, but often you don't really know, you were never given training on how to actually manage people or your new employees. So today we have Erica and Alex on the call who are going to share some fundamentals for us so you can get hit the ground running. First, we do have some housekeeping stuff to go over though, all the fun stuff. So if you're on social media, please tweet or post with us. You can use the hashtag NextGenGov to share what you learn. You should also see a Q&A box on your screen. Any questions that you have for our speakers, or if you're having any technical difficulties, you can put those in there. My colleague Andrew can help you with any of the tech stuff, and we'll be going through questions throughout the session with Erica and Alex. You also should have the group chat, which is the main chat on your screen as well. If you don't see it, there should be a button for that at the bottom. We also have all of our resources, including the slide deck from today, which is in that resource tab. You can click there and download anything that you like. And then we'll send a link to the on-demand version after the session is over. You'll have access to the entire environment for a week after this. And then all of the videos from all of the sessions from today will be available for you to watch after. So if you miss anything, you'll have another chance. If you are interested in getting CPE credit for today, there are 3 things that you need to do. You have to attend this training for the entire duration, should be about an hour. You have to take all of the polls as they come up. Make sure you click your answer and hit submit. And then to complete the CPE evaluation form, it'll be in the resource module, and then it's also in the resource center in the main environment if you miss it on this session. So with that, we will get into our session today. We do have 2 experts joining us for this. First up, we have Erica. Erica Roberts is the founder and president of X is Possible, and she's a former federal government leader. And then we also have Alex, who is an executive leadership consultant and the founder of GPS Leadership Solutions. Alex and Erica, I'm so excited to have you here today. And with that, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you to all of you. Congratulations on taking this time and making this time to invest in yourselves. I am always happy to be here at this particular summit, and prior to 2019, actually had a chance to be there as a coach back when that was offered. So I absolutely encourage you to take advantage of this resource. Now you see here in the title, this is new supervisor, comma, now what, right? And there's that comma here because oftentimes we have to pause and really say, hey, I applied for this thing. I was excited about this thing. And now I'm here, and what? Now what? And so we want to help you to build your toolbox as you are making this transition, or for some of you as you're considering making this transition. Is this even right for me? I want to also invite you, there should be a handout that you have to refer to. In all of our trainings, we encourage you to take notes. I encourage you to write it down, but if not, type it or put it in your phone and your device, but make certain that you are taking this opportunity to benefit yourself, to build your toolbox, and to really personalize it and customize it for your needs. Does that sound good? I know it does. All right, so let's go. Caitlin referred to the—
Hi, everyone.
And hi, everyone. I was going to introduce Alex, but he peeked in here. So Alex D. Tremble, the Alex D. Tremble is here too. And what we do in our style is we tend to tag team. So you will see that throughout the next hour or so. But we're starting with the levels of leadership. And you see here, and Caitlin referred to it, we often start off as individual contributors when we come into the government, when we come into the general workspace, or when we come into any new organization. And I imagine the people that made the time to be here today are the people who, as individual contributors, are recognized for being great. You're excelling it. You're knocking it out the park. And then somebody says, I see potential with you. Or you say for yourself, I've done this. I'm ready for the next level. Or you may have some other areas of factors that are affecting your decision to move forward. So when that happens, oftentimes we move up into, okay, well, I'm going to broaden my skill set, broaden my level of responsibility, not necessarily with formal supervision, but as a team leader or a major project or program manager, where other people look to me for guidance, where other people may depend on me to be able to do their work and to be able to be the best individual contributor they can be. But I don't have to worry about all the ins and outs of HR and labor rules and timekeeping and the things that come along with the next step that we see. And that is mid-level management. Sometimes that's the first supervisory experience. Sometimes you're our first level. Sometimes your first supervisory experience may be where you're managing other managers. That happens as well. And those are the folks that are in a difficult space because you are in the middle of these steps. So there are people that are sending information down to you, and there are people that are looking up to you for guidance. And by the way, in the government at least, many times you're managing the people above you, you're managing the people that report to you, and you have your very own workload that you're still performing as an individual contributor. Let me see in the chat if that resonates. I can actually see you nodding, so I already know it resonates. Yes, yes, yes. All right, so, and then moving up, you have senior management and the executive ranks, which some of you may aspire to move to that point. Some of you may already be in that point. But I want to really recognize this in the roles that all of us play. And as a new supervisor, you also want to be cognizant of all of these different steps. So I will say this, my formal supervisory journey began in 2008. And I was actually in the very unique role of having my very, very, very first supervisory experience being that as a training director. And so in that role, not only was I new to formal supervision, although I had been a team leader and people had looked to me for guidance, now I'm responsible for all of these things. And these people, these other individual contributors that are looking to me for their career guidance, that are looking to me for their everyday guidance. And so let me first say this, and this is fundamental, and if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. The fundamental shift from being an individual contributor to being a supervisor is that now you are responsible. There's a responsibility shift that comes as fundamentally for guiding your team to achieving the goals of your team and contributing to the greater mission of your office. That is fundamental, and that's something that you always want to keep in mind and keep in perspective as you're going through this thing we call work. But back to that, my story. So as a new supervisor and a training director, one of the things that I noticed is, I'm responsible now for developing these other people. They have career goals and career aspirations. And part of what I'm going to have to do is see where they need development and continue to give them opportunities while also managing my own workload and while also meeting the needs of the organization, right? Because that's how we get evaluated as managers and supervisors. One of the other things that I noticed first off is that, at least in my role, and this is my dual hat of a training director, there was no supervisory training available. So imagine my surprise. I take this position, and I was encouraged to take this position, but I took this position for an organization that had been around for 70 years. 70 years. 1,200 people in the organization, training director, and there's no management training at all. What had they been doing for 70 years, right? The same thing that probably happened to many of you. They woke up one day, their promotion had gone into effect, and now they're a supervisor, go supervise, without any direction. So what do we do when that happens? Oftentimes, we turn to our supervisors. If we have a good relationship with our past supervisors, and we look at them for models, guess what? They probably didn't have any formal training either, right? So you're learning from people, maybe good practices, maybe bad practices, but that's what we've seen. And it wasn't just my agency, that was kind of government-wide and organization-wide. That's private sector too, we see that happening. or we have taken notes over time with good experiences from past supervisors, bad experiences from past supervisors, and tried to kind of model, this is going to be my approach going forward. But oftentimes we don't have that training, and they don't have that training. And that was one of the challenges that I first faced, not only new to the game myself, but also responsible for all these other people that were in these positions with no training. And so I want to set that out there to say that you are absolutely 100% not alone in this. And I'm glad that you took this step to invest in yourself today to try to figure out some of these things. We're going to help you do that. Alex and I love doing this. We are going to have fun. I hope you have fun, but either way, we're going to have fun. So I actually want to start off with a poll, if we can, and just let us know who's in the room. We want to know if you, what your supervisory status looks like. Have you never supervised? A, never supervised. B, you've led teams, but never formally supervised, never had that formal responsibility. You've supervised, C, for less than a year. D, you've supervised for more than 1 year, but less than 5 years. And E, you're more than 5 years, you have more than 5 years of supervisory experience, but you're still here because you know you can continue to learn. And I'm going to invite you for a couple of minutes to think about that, see where you are, and respond to this poll. Alex, my last speaking engagement, I kind of dropped some bars to introduce myself. I'm not going to do that here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Alex did. Alex, do you have anything to say about this journey that we take and the levels of leadership?
Well, while we're waiting for everyone to complete this survey, I will just say one of the reasons why I in particular love working with leaders is because I see them as the caretakers of the organization. So really quick example, I am a new father. Yay! Got a little 3-month-old. If you look on LinkedIn or YouTube, my YouTube, you'll see a lot of images, pictures, videos of him. It's freaking wonderful, freaking beautiful, freaking awesome. And I'll tell you that throughout the process of having this little guy, so much love came, right? Like there's so many beautiful messages and donations and support in every which way for our little baby. And we're so thankful. And then once the baby came, the love continued flowing, and we began to realize something. My wife is going through postpartum depression, right? And for any of you who know anything about it, it's very serious. And any of you who don't know anything about it, you should learn something about it because it's very serious. And we quickly realized that there was so much love and support and encouragement being directed directly to that baby, but not as much to my wife, right? The caretaker. And the same thing happens when I'm working in organizations. The same thing happens to leaders. There's a huge, very important focus on the employee, on the staff, and make sure they're supported and they're grown, and they have the resources and they feel safe and all those things. But we can also often forget that the supervisor is also staff. The supervisor is also a person. They also need that support. They also need that encouragement. They also need the resources, the training, and so on and so forth. And so as we get into this, I wanted to sit on the table. It's on the table. Look, yes, you will hear all day from everyone on the interwebs and all these little cool little blogs and everything, how wonderful supervision is and how it's a blessing. And you have the opportunity to bless people in this. Wow, it's so great. But let me also tell you that supervision is not easy. It can be very hard, very difficult, very stressful. And that's why we wanted to put this together today and have this conversation with you, because we want to provide you with the tools to help you manage some of that stress to make sure you are safe. Because if you're not safe, then how are you gonna be able to pour into your staff? Now, again, I got talking. Miss Erica, let's look at the results.
Yes, I'm going to give everyone another 5 seconds. If you have not yet participated in this poll, we want your voice to be counted. What best describes your supervisory status? And it looks like we have over 60% that have responded. So I'm going to do my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown in a moment so that you have a chance to respond. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You know what I've started doing when I've done that? I've noticed I keep leaving my pinky in the air, which is a no-no for me. So I have just got cognizant of that in a moment ago. All right. So poll says that just about 12% of you have never supervised before. So you may be interested in kind of putting your pinky toe in that water to see, is this something that you even want to consider? And I will caution you, don't get scared today. We're going to be real. We're going to keep it 100, but don't let that steer you away from supervision if that's something that you're thinking about doing. Just take from it what you can to inform yourself and hopefully to apply it in the future. 34% of you have led teams but have never formally supervised. All right, so we'll make certain that we talk about some of the things that are different from the team management and the team lead program management type of role when you transition to actual supervision. 9% of you have supervised for less than a year. All right. 27% just about supervised for more than 1 year, but less than 5 years. All right. So we have, and then 18% have more than 5 years of supervisory experience. We are going to invite you to, throughout, again, share in the chat if there's anything in particular that you want to make certain that you take away from today, given where you are. And also in the chat or in the Q&A, if there are any particular questions potentially that you want to submit anonymously, feel free to do that in the Q&A as well. So we have one more poll for you. And on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being lowest and 5 being highest, how confident are you in your current supervisory capabilities? And so we're going to only leave this open for a minute or so. Again, if you want the credits for this, I believe you need to complete all of the polls. So we would ask you to participate in this. We have a few in. How confident are you in your current supervisory capabilities on a scale of 1 to 5?
Dun,
And you know what? I will share
dun,
that sometimes that changes. Sometimes we're confident coming in, and then we deal with some things, and then it's like, oh, did I really make the right decision, or am I really prepared for this? And when that happens, I just want to say, make a note of it. Make a note of it for yourself and think about that. That's called self-awareness. When you actually start to recognize, I may be lacking in certain areas. I may need to boost my confidence in certain areas. To boost my confidence in certain areas, I may need exposure to certain things. So that is really critical in regardless of whether you're supervisory or not, just in our own developmental games to really recognize how are we feeling and checking in with ourselves. How are we feeling with these things that we are either required to do or that we are interested in doing, or that we just happen to be doing on a daily basis in any aspect of life. So we're asking you on a scale of...
And those of you who are asking, maybe you're going to address this. 1 is low, 5 is all the way up. Hey, I see some people asking which ones, where's that all the way up button? All the way up is 5. All the way up. Nothing can stop.
I knew you were going to do that. I just knew he was going to start saying. And I'm seeing shout out from Georgia and DC and Illinois and Texas. Welcome. Let us know how comfortable you are. All right. So we have just about, I'm about to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't want to rush this, but I do want you to respond so that we can get to your toolbox. So 5, 5, 4, I can't do my pinky, 3, 2, 1. All right. 1, 1, 1, 1. We're going to go on and see where people are. So we're mostly rating ourselves in the middle. Alex actually has a background in IO psychology, so I know when it comes to these types of assessments, he's probably used to seeing that neutral response. But we're saying we're mostly confident or in the middle. Not quite sure how to rate us, but we're not lacking confidence for the most part. And then about just shy of 20% feel like you really need some growth in this area. So let's get to it if we can. So one of the things, and feel free to, again, put this in the chat if you have individual anxieties, but there are challenges, and I've alluded to it, Caitlin alluded to it, Alex alluded to it. These are some of the ones that we hear most often. And I have actually taught new supervisors across agencies with the Office of Personnel Management. I did it in my old agency. I've done it from coaching and individual contracts. I hear it. I hear it a lot. I hear it from different people. Gender doesn't matter. Age doesn't matter. Background doesn't matter. what they experience are challenges and anxieties related to these. And there may be some more, but these are the top ones that we see. One of them, and I'm going to go ahead and address this, Alex and I are going to go back and forth, is managing former peers. In the chat, if that's you, if we stepped on your toes here, if that's something that's been a challenge, or if it's something that you're concerned, if you're considering supervisory roles and that's something that you're concerned about, that is a very valid concern. It's a challenge when you go from, as I mentioned, many do, Friday, I'm a peer, and Monday, I'm a supervisor. And it's a challenge for a number of reasons. One of them is that there is an awkward tension sometimes when somebody that's not only your peer, but maybe your friend, maybe someone you hang out with, maybe somebody you've had to your house now reports to you. And there's thoughts on that side, well, they know things that I wouldn't want my boss to know, right? That there can be a tension around that. When you get in that role, it can also be a tension around learning things about people that you may have worked alongside and known for years. And I have seen this so many times with new managers where they thought that their peer was competent in all of the things. And now they have to assess their peer's performance, their former peer's performance. And they realize, that person can't write. Or that person has a lot of conflict with others. Or that person doesn't communicate well. And now you're going from a position of we were on the same level, and now I literally have to do things to elevate you and elevate the skill set, or to discipline you and potentially take action in some ways that are uncomfortable. And that is one of the realities of moving into the supervisory realm. Another thing that sometimes happens is, there are more positions that are individual contributor than there are that are supervisor, right? Whatever that ratio is in your agency. And you may not have been the only one to apply for the position. You may not have been the only one to apply for the position from your team. And this happened to me in my first role. Someone else thought that they should have gotten it. And they went from thinking that they were going to lead this to now having to report to somebody. And in my case, they made a case of the person that was much younger than them. And that was a whole conflict for them that they weren't comfortable coming to me with, but that I still had to deal with, right? And so those are things that you may have to consider. And what I will say is this, it is, if you've heard that term, it's lonely at the top. As you're moving up, one of the other challenges is as you're going through this and as these things are being said and as you're coming along, learning more about people that you've worked with or people that you now have to supervise and their skills and their strengths or their areas of improvement, it's lonely because it's only so many people you can talk to about what you're seeing. It's important as a supervisor that you know that you have to respect boundaries, and you also have to respect the information, especially performance type of information or conduct information that you happen to know about the people who report to you. And that can be difficult. I would encourage you, and this is to your toolbox, if that's not one we're going to delve deep into today, but I would encourage you to begin taking notes. So keep a notebook for yourself. I would encourage you to have some people outside of work who, some things that are shareable, like your general frustrations, not necessarily about an individual, but just in general, that you can share, maybe a coach, maybe a spouse, but somebody who is trusted and who is not related to the work, because that is key in keeping yourself sane as you're moving through certain challenges, if you experience those, and maintaining the responsibility of protecting the people who report to you as a supervisor. Alex, did you have anything else to share on that?
No, I was echoing actually in the comment section. That is the reason why it's so important to have coaches, mentors, and other people in your network. Is because people like to say, "Oh, it's not lonely at the top. You have the right relationships." No, because you can't talk to everyone about everything, and that is a reality. So it is very important for you to be proactive in building those relationships. And if I could say one last thing, and I'm gonna bounce it back over to you, Erica. When we talk about, I heard a few people in the chat section talking about, managing peers and everything like that. And look, here's the thing about that. you don't prepare for that when you're in that position. Don't if you wait till you're in that position, that is not a good thing. You want to start educating your peers now. If you know you want to elevate, you want to move higher in the organization, then you educate people around you right now on who you are, that you're ethical, that you're trustworthy, that you communicate. So when something does happen, when you do get promoted, they know who you are as a leader, and they're not going to question certain things, or it becomes easier for you to have those conversations. And so even little things such as having a conversation with your peer, like, oh shoot, one day if I'm in that situation, this is how I would handle it. Well, what do you think about it? How would you handle it? And have those conversations so that each of you know, because maybe one day they'll be the person in charge. And so you want to know these people and how they think so that you can work best with them and they can work best with you. So don't wait till you're in that position to start educating those people around you and how you would lead.
Excellent. And I want to say there was a question in, what about the people that feel that they're more experienced or qualified than you at leading? And, everyone is entitled to their opinion. And I will say this as some, just across life, regardless of whether you're supervising or not, if you are putting yourself in and doing the very best you can, you cannot measure yourself against really anyone else. You have to learn how to measure yourself against your own standard for success, the goals that you have set, the targets that you have set. I can tell you, if you're selected for a position, most cases you are selected for a reason that wasn't demonstrated as well by somebody else. Now, you don't want to go and tell them, well, clearly I'm better because they picked me. That's not something you want to say. But you have to know that for yourself and kind of build your own confidence and comfort in knowing that you were selected to do a job, and there was something that you brought to the table and something that you bring to the table that you want to leverage to be able to do that to the absolute best of your ability. Real talk, sometimes people will not want to work for you, and especially if they think that they are more experienced or more qualified than you, and that then becomes their problem, right? So if that's the case, they still work for you. You should work with them and be as neutral and professional as possible, but really understand that we're going to get into that, really understanding what your staff, what their goals are and what their needs are, and helping to develop it. And it may be that you help them to find a position, if that's the case, where they can apply their experience and their qualifications to something that they're also comfortable with. And then there's another question I saw that, and thank you, Andrew, for highlighting this one, potentially managing personnel that are difficult. How do you have those conversations as former peers? That's a challenge, and you want to come in really with a clean slate. And so I usually start off with mindset and self-awareness if we had more time or some other sessions. Sometimes we think we know stuff because we've heard things, and we may not have heard the entire story. And you will find as a supervisor that when you share things, you can't share the entire story with everybody, right? You can't share all of the details that you may be privy to. And so when you come in knowing that folks are difficult, ask yourself, is this based on something I've experienced? In which case you can use those past experiences to help develop them in a certain way that fits with the organizational goals. Or is this based on things I've heard, things other people have said, in which case just recognize 100% you don't know the whole story. And so try to give that person or those individuals that are deemed difficult the benefit of the doubt. Now, I will say my first supervisory role, sometimes they do this to you. They were like, oh, you're new to the game. We're going to give you all the folks that had drama with other people. And you're like, I need people to do this work, so I'll take them. I actually had that. I had a person who had over a decade of challenges within the organization. And you know what? They thrived. For the first several years of working with me, they thrived because they basically had a chance to grow. And that was something that they were lacking with their previous supervisor. So really kind of think about, how can I make this situation better? And as Alex and I talk with leaders that are looking toward advancement and senior executive service, all of these things, when you're having these challenges become the stories you can tell. They become those things, those adversities that you're able to overcome. So I would say, make certain that you're keeping a note of the challenges, how you address the challenges, and really what successes you had or experiences. Sometimes you might not have succeeded as you wanted to, but you still learn from it. Make certain that you're jotting that down and recognizing that, because that's part of the supervisory game. All right, so I do want to address these other things that are on here. We're going to get into delegation in some detail. We're going to get into, we've already talked about the lack of managerial training. We're going to kind of talk about working manager, but I want to acknowledge that. I want to give some voice to the fact that oftentimes we are working and supervising and having a life outside, and there are all these things that have to be considered. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the time management piece today, and then the managing the change. We will get to a little bit leadership style. I would encourage you to recognize, if you don't already know it, what your leadership style is. We'll kind of talk about that in the communication. And then performance management. And performance management literally is like a whole week of training for you to understand the performance management. It differs by agency, but do know that this is something that people are oftentimes anxious about. It is, how am I going to assess and evaluate the work of others? So the one thing I will leave you with, two things. One, seek some formal training in performance management as a new supervisor. That's an absolute must, and longer than an hour. You want to get your questions answered and know how the entire performance management process works. We'll talk about communication and feedback today, but I really want you to pursue that if that's an anxiety for you. And two, just kind of know that performance management is not once a year. That is an ongoing, continuous process. And you want to make certain that you're aligning it to whatever your agency or organization's requirements are. And then finally, I'll acknowledge the stress. And Alex kind of touched on the stress earlier, but we do know that any increase in responsibility also potentially has an increase in stress. So acknowledge that for yourself and figure out what you can do for yourself that relieves stress. Build that into your schedule. So those are some things we wanted to put out there. I want to ask you, we have a poll, and I want to ask you all, what fundamental supervisory skill do you think is most challenging to develop? And A is communication, B is delegation, C is time management, D is conflict management. We're going to actually touch on all of those so that you can fill your toolbox today. But I want to know which of A through D, communication, delegation, time management, or conflict management, do you feel is the most challenging to develop? And if you say it's not any of those, it's one of the other ones that we just kind of touched on, or something that we haven't touched on at all, feel free to answer E and put that in the chat. Alex, do you have any thoughts on the other challenges or anxieties that new supervisors often see?
I want to hear what the team does, because I always got something to say. And I know we're almost halfway through our session, so I'm going to hold my tongue for a second. I know.
There was something that you picked up on and while they're responding, and we have about 60% have responded, so we'll give you a couple more minutes. But another thing I want you all to make a note of and to think about and really reflect on, and Alex kind of alluded to this, everyone's experience is going to be different. And so when you're talking to other people, or you're sharing with other people, or even when you ask a question, when you pose a question here, it may be slightly different than what someone else hears or what they would have asked, because again, the fundamental difference of supervising is people. It's a people-based responsibility. And so the people that you're dealing with are going to be different than the people that others are dealing with. And the challenges that arise in your organization are going to be different than the challenges that arise in someone else's organization. And let me tell you, real talk, you are different than the person that you're talking to. We all bring our own preferences and strengths and areas of improvement and communication styles and personal lives. We all bring that to the table each and every day. And so also make certain that you're looking at these supervisory skills that are most challenging to develop, that you're really thinking about most challenging to develop for me, because you really want to focus on you and your particular situation and circumstances. But we still have people voting. I'm gonna give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see what we have here. So most folks said conflict management. That's interesting. followed by delegation. All right, so those are some that we're going to spend some time on now. I see a few of you mentioned communication and time management, and then a few of you put in others. So if we can see what a couple of those others are to see if we can work that into the next half of this segment. But I will say that all of these really apply whether you are a new supervisor, whether you're an individual contributor, whether you are a senior executive. All of these things are fundamental and core. The ones that we chose to talk about today are fundamental and core to your success in whatever role you're in. So let's go ahead and, are there any in the chat on the other that you want to call out before we move on, Alex?
I mean, the other one is employee engagement, right? That's always a big one.
Yep. All right. So that's what I just mentioned: the communication, the delegation, the time management, and the conflict resolution. Those are the puzzle pieces that we're going to delve deeper into, and we'll make certain that we spend some emphasis and some extra time on the delegation and then the conflict management. All right. So, Alex.
So, everyone, here's the question. Real quick. Who would like to have $1 million in their bank account right now? If you would like to, just type in YASSSS in the chat box right now. Real quick. Yeah, 30 seconds.
Tax? Is my $1 million taxed?
I mean, you gonna pay, look, I'll take the $1 million tax or untaxed if it's free money. Real quick. Come on, chat box. I know there's a slight delay. I see some yeses coming in. Yeses. Yes. Okay, Lee, I see you out there. So here's the first thing. Active listening. Everyone who put a yes in the chat box right now, that's active listening. You're listening what's going on. You're engaging in what's going on. And those of you who may not have put the yes, is one, maybe you're already independently wealthy, so you don't need the money. And maybe it's more of a headache for you. Or you're doing something off to the side. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about active listening. If you want to be a leader, a good leader and supervisor, then you have to be able to spend the time to slow yourself down to listen what other people are saying. Why? Because information is key. I still remember a conversation I used to have with the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the agency I used to work with, Interior. And she told me early in my career, she said, Alex, the person with the most information wins. The person with the most information wins. I didn't truly understand it until a couple years later, where I just learned to just soak in information. Why is that important? Because when you soak in the information, you understand what the true problem is. When you soak in the information, you understand who's getting along with who and what's not working. And you know what? Also, this small thing, your staff understands that you care. If they say something to you and you don't listen to them, whether it's be a project or a challenge that they're dealing with right now, if you're not actively paying attention and listening to them and can respond back with some information, they're going to immediately write you off. That it doesn't matter what I say to this person. So that employee engagement we talked about goes away. That trust we talked about goes away. The conflict management, when you want to manage a conflict, they know they can't trust you or you're not going to listen to them, goes away. Everything starts with this listen. That's why they say God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So let's keep it rolling. The next thing is clearly express instructions and expectations. Like, really quickly, 2 stories. The first one is a funny one. My wife and I were heading out to DC the other day with our little baby, and we're gonna do a whole trip, just walking around DC. Get the baby in the car. Everyone's going. We go. We leave. My wife says, "Did you grab the pump for the stroller?" I'm like, "No, isn't the pump in the back of the car where it should be?" Right, I'm already getting there. And she says, "No, I asked you to put the pump in the car so we can pump the stroller." And now we're going back and forth. Now I got to sit up here and stop the car, turn around, go all the way back home. Now I'm feeling type of way. She's feeling type of way. We pull up to the house and she's like, "Alex, you don't go get it?" I'm like, "No, you go get it. You know where it is." And so she gets out the car to go get it. We go on about our day. Things calm down. We have a good time, right? Halfway through the day, because my wife is breastfeeding, she starts to feel like, kind of hurting, feeling full. And I say, "Sweetheart, why don't you just go in and get the breast pump that's in the car?" And she says, what are you talking about? I said, you asked me to get the breast pump this morning before we left. And she started laughing. And then I started laughing. Because we realized when she asked me to get the pump, she was talking about the stroller pump. I heard the breast pump. And now we had this whole conflict blow up because we didn't understand. There wasn't clear directions given and or clarification asked for. Clear expectations. Last thing I'll say, my first time me supervising someone, again, I used to manage the Executive Leadership Development Program for the Department of the Interior, and then 3 government-wide leadership development programs. I still remember my first employee I had working for me. She was so wonderful. Her name was Frankie. She was amazing. And we were going, the relationship just wasn't going. Like, I asked her to get something done, and she just couldn't get it done. And we were butting heads. And finally, one day, I'm sitting in my office. She comes in, and she says, she presents the information I asked her to grab. And I look at it, and I say, don't worry about it. I handle it myself. Frankie immediately looked at me and started crying. She said, Alex, I want to do a good job. I don't know what you want. That changed my life moving forward. I realized I was giving her incomplete instructions because I had half of it here and saying the other half here, and it's expected her to know what I want. For all of you, has anyone ever experienced something like that? Someone just, giving you half instructions. I'd love to see if I was the only one. If I was the only one, man, it must be.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
So I tell you, again, it comes back to slowing down and creating a space, as me and Erica talked about earlier, where people will feel comfortable with pushback. I'm so glad that she was willing to stop and tell me, Alex, look, I want to do a good job. You're not providing good instructions. I am so blessed with that. But not everyone has a relationship with their staff where they can do that. So again, make sure you're building those relationships so they can share this information with you. And then learn and respect communication preferences. Again, I'll tell you this. This is a real conversation. All of us communicate differently. All of us think differently. I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna put Erica and me on blast. When Erica needs something, she's gonna text me or she's gonna call me real quick. And you know what? Works. When I need something, I'm gonna say, Erica, I do a voice message. Erica, you X, Y, and Z. I won't hear back from Erica for a day or two because Erica don't listen to voice messages. The point being,
I tell you that I'm not going to listen to your voice message because that does not
mean that we've had this conversation. We know what works best for each other. And then so sometimes, absolutely, I have to know that if I'm going to send a voice message, there's a chance she's not going to look at it. Now, look, here's the thing. As a supervisor, it is not, you should be doing everything you can to adapt to your team and make sure you can communicate the different ways. Maybe it's text message, maybe it's email, maybe it's voicemail, maybe it's call, maybe it's meeting some person. You should, yes. But at the end of the day, you're also the supervisor. And I don't know how many people you got in your team. And so it's not just a you giving of yourself. Your team should also do the same thing for you. They should be asking how can they communicate best with you. It can't just be one way. You'll drive yourself crazy, okay? So you need to be doing the same thing. And again, as Erica talked about before, and if you find yourself in a situation where someone just refuses to communicate with you in a way that you and that person have discussed and said, look, this is what needs to happen, then that's a performance challenge. And that's a different conversation.
Yeah. I want to pick up on a couple of things you just said, if I can, Alex. One of them is because you referred to norms. So, and Alex and I, we have training programs together. We deliver training together. We have projects working together. We've worked on things for years. And so one of the things that we've established is norms. We actually have systems in place for communicating information. Sometimes if it is training related, we might have Google shares or document shares. Sometimes if it's hey, I need to meet with you, it's a text. Sometimes if it's I had an idea and I have a billion other things to do, so I'm literally leaving this message for when you get it, then he'll leave a voice message or voice note. I don't know technology. I'm older than that for me. But anyway, so I want to say part of that is actually establishing norms. And as a new supervisor, especially, or a supervisor in a new team, especially, when you come in to that role, that's a very good opportunity to really sit down with everyone on your team who it reports to you and say, let's have a conversation of what works for us individually and what works for us as a team, and establish some norms around that for this team to be able to operate and be able to respect one another. I also want to pick up, I'm going to give a quick example here too, but I was doing a detail. So it was a GS15 in 2011. And I went from being a training director, where I had at that point, it had gotten 1,900 employees. So this large organization, and I'm responsible for the training, central training office for all of them. Where it was important for me, if I put out anything, that it be consistent, right? I'm doing policies, I'm announcing trainings, I'm doing requirements, and I want we had 50 different district offices. I wanted this district office to get the same information as this district office. I wanted this new employee to have the same experience from the training perspective as this employee. And so my preferred style to do that, and I didn't like that little red light on the phone where people would call me if they had questions. I hated seeing that light, because that was a new task for me, just like these voice messages are. It's a new task for me to have to go back and listen to something, right? So we actually created one of the first, in that agency at least, intranet pages as a self-serve repository, thinking through what are all the things that people need to know, right? So that was where I was coming from, in this national position with national authority responsibilities, and all these folks who didn't report to me, but who I had some responsibility toward. It was a lot of putting things in writing and emails that could be blasted to everyone. That's the same thing. Or actual written policies where they would refer to it, or an intranet page as a central point of information. I went on to become a deputy regional administrator, and I had 8 different district offices reporting to me. They were all second level managers. And my regional, the senior executive there said, Erica, I want you to do I just want you to reach out and ask everybody their communication style. And I asked them, do you prefer emails, in person, phone calls? And all of them preferred in person, followed by phone calls, followed by email. They detested the emails. They didn't want it. They wanted that personal one-on-one time. And if possible, they wanted it to be in person. And so, is something moving? I wanted to say that as a point of kind of guidance for you to really check in with your people, and don't assume that your preference, for whatever reason that might be your preference, is the preferred communication style for everyone else. That is something that should be in your toolbox, regardless of the level, to really think about that, and that'll make your life better. The last thing I want to say here, and it relates to communication, we're not covering performance management in detail or agency priorities, but I do want to address the concern about meeting agency expectations and managing employees' expectations. And a lot of that can be addressed by that two-way communication, making certain that first you understand what the priorities are, that you are communicating what the priorities are, that you're communicating how each individual on your team supports the agency priorities, and then that you are making certain that you're having those conversations on a regular basis with your employees. All right. So that actually brings us into delegation. And
I know, really quickly, I know that we only have 10 minutes, about 10 minutes left now. So everyone, just please know that, again, slides, you'll have them. And if you want to reach back out to us, please do. And I do see some comments in here about, how do you build those initial relationships and whatnot. Eric and I will be sharing content. I'm putting something in the chat right now. We are here for you. Go on, Erica. Yeah.
So delegation, I want to get on this as a absolute tool for your toolbox for a number of reasons. Delegation at its core is about distributing your tasks efficiently within your team, amongst your team members. It helps to prevent burnout and stress for you. It empowers them and builds trust amongst them. And it ensures that the work, somebody said the agency expectations, it ensures that work is completed effectively. All right. So sometimes new supervisors struggle with letting go. We struggle with ooh, I was a top performer in this thing and I don't want to let it go to someone else. Well, guess what? At some point, you have to get over that. You have to understand that delegation is an absolute necessary requirement. It's a necessary part of leadership, and it frees you up to focus on the things that are unique to your position. A couple of things I want to mention. The developing employee part is huge, and that's the part that we mentioned. You may not have had training before. You may not have had management training. It is incumbent upon you as a new supervisor. This is one of the core things to being a supervisor, is that you are looking to develop your employees. And so you want to do that active listening and communication, assess their skills and their capabilities and their interests, know the strengths and the weaknesses of your team members. That's part of what you need to learn early on. Who does what well, who has gaps in learning that or functioning that they need to address, and what can I assign to them to help them to really address that. That helps with helps to get the work done, but it also helps with their own employee development and opportunities for growth for them. So delegating the right task to the right people is crucial for success. It also establishes accountability and allows you to help make people accountable for achieving things and for contributing to the organizational goals. And I'll tell you, oftentimes when you have difficult folks that are deemed difficult, it's because they don't really see how their work contributes to the bigger picture. And so, or they're not really held accountable and somebody else will do it, right? So this is an opportunity for you to establish accountability by delegating those tasks. I mentioned that it builds trust. So it's at some point over time, and it takes time on occasion, you want to be able to build your confidence in your team's ability to do things, to take ownership. If you can build that confidence, then you can also go on vacation and take leave and care for yourself too, which is important as you continue your own journey. Micromanaging can hinder their performance. It can demotivate. And so the delegation piece is important. That doesn't mean you give it away and never check in. That means that you give opportunity and accept that they may not do it exactly how you would have done it. They may not do it 100%, but it's something that is getting done and that is a growth opportunity. I will say that right hand in hand with delegation comes prioritization. And so as a new supervisor, that's something else that you want to learn. And okay, which functions of our office are priorities? Which absolute tasks must be done and must be done to a certain level? Who's going to see them? And you may take that into consideration when you're delegating. And then it also contributes to productivity, because when you have more people doing more of the work, then more of the work can get done. That's just a matter of multiplication here. All right. So that is what I'm going to leave you with on delegation. But part of knowing your role is knowing that you have to develop your team. And you can do that through delegating tasks and really looking at that as something that allows them to contribute to the final products and services of your office, but that also builds trust with you. This one wasn't as much of a skill with the time management. So I'll ask Alex to manage his time on this slide. Boom, boom. And then why are the slides moving? Alex?
I am here. There's technical issues on my side. So I will say that time management is always a thing, right? I don't believe, I'm going to say very briefly, we are all great at time management. There's information on the slide. I can't necessarily see it right now, but we're all great at time management. And here's the reality, is that we get done what we find most important, what we prioritize. If you want to go to the movies, you're going to do that. If you're going to get this report done, you're going to do that. You're going to do it. I think the more important thing is not time management as much as it is prioritization. Understanding what needs to get done now. Again, there's a difference between what's important and what's urgent. And most things that are important are not urgent, and most things that are urgent are not important. So you need to know the difference between those two. And then again, it all goes right back to, as a leader, delegation. Understanding what can be given to someone else versus what some things just don't need to get done anymore. And I think that's a lot of problems that we do in the federal government or in the government space, is that we continue doing things just because they've always been done, versus asking the question, does this need to happen? I'm going to pass it back to you because we have 4 minutes left.
We have a couple more minutes than that, but I think we do. But this one was significant. And I want to recognize, as people, as humans, conflict is inevitable. Conflict is inevitable on your teams. There are different types of conflict that you can really think about. And I will ask somebody if they can put it in the chat to share. There's something called the Dimensions of Conflict model. And that really helps folks understand the three dimensions of cognitive, emotional, or behavior conflict. And knowing that, because I know that that's an issue that, again, conflict management can be a whole, and resolution can be a whole topic for a whole week. But there's that dimensions of conflict model that you can look at and really learn more about cognitive, emotional, and behavioral based conflict that I think would be a good addition to your toolbox. I do want to recognize here that as it relates especially to workplace conflict, there are different types of conflict as well. So there can be task conflict, there can be relationship and interrelational conflict, there can be intergroup conflict. In my government days, I don't know if it's still the same. I do know, but I don't know if it's still the same, that there are silos, right? And sometimes there are some territorial battles. I have stories. But that can be something. It can be interorganizational conflict. I have stories there too with agency A, agency B. They don't really talk to each other, but don't overstep in anybody's bounds. And then there can be actual emotional relationship conflict that needs to be addressed. So the biggest thing for your toolbox as a supervisor who may have conflict with people or may have to manage conflict amongst people that you supervise is to start with that analysis and really understanding what are the root causes of the conflict. Who are the parties involved and what are the root causes of their conflict? And to approach it like you approach everything else as a supervisor, with neutrality and being impartial. And then to make certain that as resolutions are created, as it's managed, some things can't be resolved, but at least dealt with. That you're following up and monitoring to make certain that the conflict doesn't end up going into a space that is unmanageable. So that's what I will share with you there. I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions, and I believe my information is posted too. So if you have specific questions, conflict can also get very, very, very individual. So I want to invite you to share or to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want, or you have the information here if you have any specific questions that we can help to address. But as a recap today, we've talked about communication, delegation, time management, and conflict management and resolution. And you will have this slide. I also encourage you to use the handouts that were provided, and this is fillable, so you can go back and on all the things that either came up or that you heard mentioned or the stories that were shared, and kind of address if it was, what your core supervisory challenges are going forward, and which ones do you think you're going to really, really, really want to tackle in the next 30 days, the next 60 days, the next 90 days, the next 12 months, so that you can improve in your ability to supervise as well as in your confidence in supervising. And then I'm going to tell you some steps you can take today. One of them is, this is an amazing summit. It has been for years. It's something that I would encourage you to continue to enroll in. And so there, always stay tuned to what is offered by GovLoop and NextGen. Alex has tons of stories, as you can see, and he shares them. He shares some of those stories, but also conversations, very candid conversations in the Executive Appeal and in his 2 best-selling books. And then I offer coaching for government folks if you're interested in that, and leadership development for civil servants. Future Focused Now is leadership development for civil servants. That's a course that Alex and I developed starting in 2020, right at the beginning of the pandemic, and is now kind of morphed into this thing where we're able to provide ongoing leadership development for new supervisors and those advancing in their careers. So with that, I want to thank you.
Really quickly, the link for the Future Focus Now is in the chat box. So any of you who are interested, please go and click on there. And then also, it's now 3 best-selling books, with the newest one being Relationships That Work. Definitely check it out. So many great reviews. And again, Eric and I love to connect with you moving forward.
I knew it was 3 books. I didn't know that the last one was best-selling yet. So congratulations. On that note, Caitlin, we're going to turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex and Erica, for being here today. Really appreciate it. I wish we had another hour to keep going. I feel like this wasn't enough time. If there were any questions that didn't get answered, is LinkedIn the best place to reach out?
LinkedIn or the email that you see, programs@xispossible.com. That links to the Future Focus Now team. So Alex will see that too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah. So if anyone had questions that didn't get answered or anything we didn't get to today, feel free to reach out there. This session will also be recorded. It's recorded, so you can come back and listen to it, as well as all of the other breakout sessions and keynotes if you missed any of them. We do have our next lunch session, our keynote session, coming up soon. You can see it in the conference hall where you saw this training and the other ones. We also have the leaderboard going on, just as a reminder. If you as you participate in different actions, you get points. The winners, the top people in the leaderboard, get gift cards. So definitely an incentive to do that. Make sure to take the CPE evaluation to get your credit today. If you are looking for the CPE credit, that form is in the Resource Center and it's in the Resource Console here. And then if you do have any questions about the NextGen conference as a whole, feel free to email us. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, we have our lunch keynotes coming up. About trust going both ways. We'll be sharing our NextGen Public Service Award winners, which is always one of my favorite parts of the conference. And then we have another keynote about how to lead with an inclusive mindset. So I hope everyone is enjoying their day. Thank you again, Erica and Alex, for being here today. Really appreciate it. And this was another great session. And I will see you at the next one.
See ya.